Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you are new here. My name is Andrea.M. and this is the Oz Files, The Truth Is Out Back. And before we get started today, I want to introduce you to my new friend. This is Charlie. Now, I picked Charlie up in an op shop yesterday. Say hi to everybody. Say hi, everyone. Charlie is a haunted clown doll. He is a very nice fellow. He is not in any way dangerous or creepy. But I know a lot of you all are afraid of clowns. I myself am not. I love clowns. I always have. Yeah, I actually did like the first Pennywise. Second one, he scared the heck out of me. So apart from the amazing new It clown, I actually really love clowns a lot, and he's a little hobo clown. And Charlie is going to be assisting me with my videos for The Truth Is Out Back, the Oz Files from now on. So please get used to seeing him in the videos with me. Be kind to Charlie. He's a really nice little guy. He has a lovely spirit attached to him, and I'm already attached to him myself. So everybody welcome Charlie to the team, and let's get into today's stories. And welcome back. So today on the Oz Files, The Truth Is Out Back, we are going to be exploring the top 7 most haunted roads in Australia. Australia, the land down under, ancient, mysterious, reputable for some of the most horrifying creatures to ever skitter across the face of the earth. And no, I'm not talking about our spiders or our snakes or our drop bears, or anything else that people seem to be very afraid of if you're from overseas. Well, these guys are the least of your worries, believe me. This is not, however, our only claim to fame in the creepy fear factor arena. Australia is also famous for our haunted lore, twisted tales, and unexplained creatures, lingering spirits, and Dreamtime legends. So it should come as no surprise that Australia also has some of the most haunted roads and trails in the world. Today, as I said, we're going to be exploring the 7 most haunted roads in Australia. So like I said, sit back, grab a snack, grab a drink, and let's delve into some of Australia's most haunted places. And we're starting off with number 7, Mount Victoria Pass, New South Wales, the Blue Mountains, the Lady in Black. Located on the western side of the Blue Mountains, New South Wales, on the Great Western Highway heading towards Lithgow and Bathurst. And if any of you are finding the name Lithgow familiar, you may be familiar with the stories of the Lithgow Panther, which I am going to cover in another video. Constructed in 1880 lies Victoria Mountain Pass. Mount Victoria also may well be the spookiest town, with its reputation for many spooky occurrences. Australian poet Henry Lawson wrote a poem about the ghost of the Second Bridge, also known as the Lady in Black. For well over 100 years, locals have reported the infamous spectre haunting the road that travels through the Blue Mountains to Bathurst and Lithgow. Suffer and succotash, here we go again. Reports of horses becoming spooked and nervous as they approached the bridge spanning the pass. Later, the stories would morph into witnesses seeing the woman straddling the horses and trying to wrest control away from the driver of the coach. But who is this infamous lady in black haunting this mountain pass? The ghost is said to be that of a local woman named Carolyn Collins, who was found in a terrible condition and deceased by the bridge in 1842. Motorists still report sightings of the woman in black to this very day. So if you're driving through Victoria Mountain Pass, keep your eye out. You might just run into the lady in black. Number 6. The Newell Highway, New South Wales. And this road is said to be haunted by yet another mystery woman, the Pilliga Princess. Long before prisoners were sent to the colonies in Australia, our First Nations people were long in residence and have certain beliefs about the land. The Newell Highway passes through an area long said to be haunted. The proof of this being a spectre that locals have named the Pilliga Princess. The story goes on that an elderly, homeless Indigenous lady was pushing her trolley. I guess you guys in the States and maybe over in Britain call them carts. We call them trolleys here in Australia, and I think they call them trolleys in Canada too. But it's your cart that you put all your stuff in. You see homeless people pushing them all the time, wherever you live. So this poor lady apparently was in the dead of night pushing her belongings up the highway, and it is said that she was accidentally killed by a hit and run with a truck that was passing by at the time. Ghost is said to be wandering the highway even to this very day, and she is still spotted on almost a daily basis by the locals of this region. Number 5 in our countdown is the infamous WAKEHURST Parkway in New South Wales. And yes, we have yet another mystery lady. It seems to be a running theme of the day-to-day are these mystery lady ghosts. This one actually has a name, and her name is Kelly. The infamous WAKEHURST Parkway on the way to Sydney, New South Wales is mired in darkness and a disturbing history, with being one of Australia's most dangerous roads if you happen to be a hitchhiker. So apparently a lot of hitchhikers have been run down, a lot of people have gone missing hitchhiking on this road, and yes, it is close to another infamous road where a lot of backpackers went missing in the 90s. However, we're going to get to that later in this video. In other infamous familiarity with this road, it is known as a dumping ground for the many murder victims coming out of Sydney. So you have to think there's a lot of gangland activity in Sydney. There's a lot of crime in Sydney, unfortunately, these days. And a lot of people who go missing from Sydney, unfortunately, turn up somewhere on the WAKEHURST Parkway. So if you happen to be in your car and you are travelling the WAKEHURST Parkway at night, be prepared, you might just meet Kelly. So Kelly is rumoured to be a woman in white seeking a ride from unsuspecting motorists. It is not advised, however, that you pick her up or that you acknowledge her in any way. If you do happen to see Kelly appear in your rearview mirror, that means she is sitting in your back seat. And it is advised by locals who have run afoul of this spectre in the past that you should order her out of your car immediately. Tell her to get out, that you cannot take her to her destination, that she needs to leave, that she may not attach to you, that she may not attach to your vehicle. Because if you happen to drive off with Kelly in the back seat, as has happened before with many witness accounts saying they have seen people just drive off the road and get into a smash or lose control of their vehicles. So if Kelly appears in your rear vision mirror, you must tell her to vacate your vehicle immediately. But there is more to Kelly's story than meets the eye. She has been described by a lot of locals as looking perhaps like a bride or like a nun in a white habit. There were some people who did look a little bit further into Kelly, and she may have been wandering the WAKEHURST Parkway a lot longer than people actually thought she had been. So just across from the WAKEHURST Parkway is the suburb of Manly. And what used to be there at Manly from 1830 until 1984 was the quarantine station. The quarantine station was originally was when people were arriving to Sydney via sea travel back in the 1800s. They were quarantined at the quarantine station to try and stop the spreading of disease. Early 1900s in Australia, of course, we had the Spanish flu epidemic. It was very similar to COVID. So this quarantine station was to keep the sick people in, and the well people could leave, obviously, and go about their business. But a lot of people did arrive to Australia. They weren't in great condition, and a lot of them did die. And when the researchers looked into what the nurses used to wear that worked at the quarantine station, it fit Kelly's description perfectly. So now we are thinking that Kelly is actually the spirit of a nurse who was working at the quarantine station. A lot of people thought at first that she may have been perhaps a hitchhiker who had met with foul play, or perhaps somebody who had died in a car accident, when in reality, Kelly has been haunting the WAKEHURST Parkway for a very, very, very long time. So how did Kelly die? Was she murdered? Did she simply catch something from one of the patients at the quarantine station? Did she have an accident? What is her reason for haunting the Parkway? Research still goes into the WAKEHURST Parkway ghost because she is spotted on almost a nightly basis. People are still having experiences with her. So if I get any updates into Kelly's identity, who she was, where she came from, and how she died, I will update you in a later video. That is not where the story of the WAKEHURST Parkway ghost ends. People have reported hearing disembodied screams of a woman rending the night air as they drive through. They've also had their electricals in their cars go absolutely haywire. Windshield wipers going on and off when nobody's pressed anything. Cars just coming to a complete standstill. Lights not working, radios coming on by themselves. And if the car doesn't stop and they actually are able to just keep driving, once they are out of that stretch of road where the WAKEHURST Parkway ends, everything just goes back to normal and they continue on their journey. So again, if you're driving through WAKEHURST Parkway late at night, get ready, you may just run into Kelly. Infamous Lemon Tree Passage ghost. In the 1980s, it is said that a young, unregistered, unlicensed motorcycle driver in his 20s crashed his bike because he was speeding, going way too fast on that stretch of road, and crashed into a tree and he died. Another account states that it was actually two young men, that one was driving and one was riding as a pillion passenger, and the same result, they were going too fast, perhaps they had been drinking, and both young men died. So it is one of Australia's most haunted roads and most discussed legend, and it actually has a few criteria if you want to see the Lemon Tree Passage ghost. 1. The ghost will only appear if it is after dark and late at night. 2. The ghost will only appear if you are travelling towards Lemon Tree Passage, not if you are coming back the other way from Lemon Tree Passage. The ghost presents itself as one single bright light, very similar to what you might see if you do indeed have a motorbike rider following you. It will appear and disappear if you are driving through Lemon Tree Passage late at night. And lastly, the legend suggests that you also need to be under 25 years of age, that you need to be displaying P plates, which are provisional license plates that we have on our cars in Australia when we first get our licenses. You need to be displaying your P plates and you need to be travelling over 100 kilometres per hour. So this kind of blew up in the 90s, and there were young P plate drivers speeding through that area trying to get a glimpse of this ghost. However, it is not advisable, like, okay, this is a really cool story. The ghost has been sighted. I've seen footage of the ghost, but please do not, if you are a young driver on your P plates, if you are any driver at all, do not speed. It's not a good idea. And what the ghost is there for, why he chases people, is if you are speeding and you are young, he is trying to warn you. Please don't do that. This is how I died. So please, if you want to see the ghost, just go and drive through, because I've seen footage on YouTube of people they're not displaying P plates, they're not speeding, they're just driving through, they're not the required age, and you still have a chance to see the Lemon Tree Passage ghost. Now, this ghost isn't out looking for revenge or redemption. He simply wants to stop people making the same mistake that he did and driving too fast through that stretch of road. So he makes our list as number 4. This ghost was also the subject of the quite regrettable and forgettable 2014 movie Lemon Tree Passage. I have seen the trailers of this movie, and watch it at your own peril, that's all I'm going to say. I don't feel the need to watch it. Kind of looks a little bit typical and not sticking exactly to the story. So go watch it if you want to, but that's going to be like an hour and a half of your life you're never going to get back. You would be better to look at the YouTube videos, trust me, there's some really good ones on here. So that is the Lemon Tree Passage ghost. Number 3 on our list sees us heading south to Victoria. Anti-Gravity Hill Road, Wood End. And this has a really lovely spooky twist that I absolutely love. Wood End is located 80 kilometres north of Melbourne. Straws Lane and Anti-Gravity Hill Road are two heavily guarded and most baffling secrets of this area. It is said if you stand near the bottom of the hill, you have a glass of water or a bottle of water, and you pour the water onto the hill, it will run upwards instead of downwards like it should. Similarly, if you have a ball with you or something that will roll, if you put it at the base of the hill, it will roll upwards instead of downwards. Pretty crazy, huh? Also, you can do the Gravity Hill Road test in your car. If you start at the bottom of the hill and you put your car in neutral and just let it roll, it will roll uphill, not downhill. And as I was researching this road and the legend of how it's kind of creepy and spooky with the gravity running the opposite direction, I have found, added to that, it is located on the very same road, like at an intersection that you take to go to the infamous Hanging Rock in Victoria. Hanging Rock featured in Joan Lindsay's 1967 horrifying novel Picnic at Hanging Rock. Now, if you've never read Picnic at Hanging Rock and you love a really good creepy story, I recommend you to go read it. I am going to feature Picnic at Hanging Rock here on the Oz Files in a future video, for those of you who don't know the story. But it was a novel, and I've read the novel, absolutely loved it. Because I've been a spook since I was pretty much born. I actually watched Picnic at Hanging Rock when I was about 5, and I loved it. It was made in 1976, and oh my god, I have that movie on DVD. It is one of my favourite Australian scary movies, and it was based on a true story, but I will go into that on another video. But Anti-Gravity Hill Road is just down the road from Hanging Rock Reserve. So it was Joan Lindsay who wrote the novel, and it was about a girls' school that was just down the road from Hanging Rock, and there was a picnic day held on Valentine's Day in 1900, and 3 of the young women and their teacher went missing after a walk up to the top of the rock, and they didn't return. But I'm going to get into that more on another video that we can explore it a little more thoroughly. But I'm just finding that it's really interesting that we have Anti-Gravity Hill Road and we have Hanging Rock in such close proximity to each other. And the other things that happen if you are in that area, your watches will stop, they'll run backwards. You'll also have, if you go down the road to go to Hanging Rock, you're going to have problems with your car, like the other road we just talked about. Electrical's not working, things shutting off and coming back on, disembodied screams. It's a very, very, very creepy place. And that's why it makes number 3 on our list of the most haunted and spooky roads in Australia. We're getting down to the pointy end of our list now, and this one is going to be very familiar to some of you once I start to get into it. So number 2 on our list is Tanami Road in Northern Territory, crossing over into WA, right up the top of Australia. And why Tanami Road may be familiar to some of you is it leads to the infamous Wolfe Creek Crater Reserve. And if you're wondering, yes, this is the same Wolfe Creek that was featured in the movies and the TV show. So not only is this road, Tanami Road, synonymous with the movies Wolfe Creek, it also is a scary road to navigate at the best of times. You have to remember, this is the top end of Australia. This road is desert and there's not a lot of infrastructure. I don't even know what their council that would fix the roads and stuff would be like up there, but it is a road that is full of giant potholes. And then if you're trying to drive around the pothole and you drive off into a ditch on the side of the road, you have very loosely, very deep packed sand, and you can get your car stuck. If you get stuck out there, there's no AAA, there's no NRMA, there is no one to call to pull you out. So that's why it's a very scary road to begin with. Then if you are lucky enough to get stuck on Tanami Road leading to Wolfe Creek Crater and other parts unknown in the outback, it is home to a lot of animals. And the animals that Tanami Road is home to are big red kangaroos, usually fairly peaceful, but if you get between a big buck and his mate and his children, it's not good. That's not a place you want to be. There are also a lot of venomous spiders and snakes that are endemic to this area, and then you have the local dingo population. A couple of dingoes on their own. These are our Australian native dogs, for want of a better word. They're not really a dog though, they are a wild animal. And they roam in packs, similar to coyotes in the US. And if you run afoul of a pack of dingoes late at night or you're on your own, it's not going to end well for you. So this is just the start of the reasons why Tanami Road is not recommended unless you are extremely prepared and you know what you're doing. If you are lucky enough to have made it all the way down Tanami Road without running afoul of the animals, the huge potholes in the road, or the sucking sand that will eat your car, and you get to Wolfe Creek Crater, people have reported while they are there, it's nearly the same thing as Hanging Rock and Gravity Hill Road. A lot of weird things happen out there to do with magnetism. So for those of you who don't know what Wolfe Creek Crater is, Wolfe Creek Crater is a humongous crater in the middle of the desert that was said to have been made by a large meteorite back in the day, probably when the dinosaurs were still here doing their thing. May have even been part of the apocalypse that wiped the dinosaur population out. Don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. But also, if you're in the outback, especially around other places more inland, towards the centre, like Coober Pedy over the other side, there are a lot of places you can go and you can actually dig up dinosaur bones in the outback. So that's what Wolfe Creek Crater is. It's a huge crater that has been made by an asteroid, and it's still there. Like, you can still see it, and I'll insert pictures here so you know what it looks like. So if you're lucky enough to make it to Wolfe Creek Crater, people have reported their radio's not working, their car's not working when they want to get back in and drive away. As anybody who loves the Wolfe Creek movies will see, that does happen. Reports of watches not working, of cell phones not working. Your cell phone isn't going to work. There's not great service out there, so if you do get in trouble, it's really hard to call for help. You may make it back to your car and find that it does not in fact switch on or work, only to try it a few hours later and it will work, and you can drive out of there and hopefully be on your way unscathed and to your next destination. So that brings me to our next point, is the movies. So people have asked the question many a times, are the Wolfe Creek movies based on fact? And I hate to tell you this, but yes, they are based on true cases that have happened in the outback. While the character so brilliantly played by John Jarratt, Mick Taylor, is actually loosely based on the backpacker killer Ivan Milat, there is a serial killer loose in the outback. Actually, there are probably several. And Wolfe Creek is actually based on true facts. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the movies, you might want to just fast forward to the next point of the next, the last section of this video. But there is somebody who survives the first movie, if you haven't seen it, and it will tell you at the end of the movie that it was his eyewitness account that led the police back to look for this Mick Taylor, or whatever the real guy's name is, and they couldn't find a trace of him. He'd skedaddled, he was gone. And this is the thing with people who live in the outback. And the outback is a beautiful place, but it's also extremely dangerous if you can get past the potholes, the sand traps, the animals, and the inhospitable environment. It's not a very forgiving place for people who don't know what they are doing. I have lived in Australia my entire life. I have no desire whatsoever to go to Wolfe Creek Crater or to go to the outback in general. Yes, I'm a sook and I'm a total girl and I like my comfort, so I will not be heading to Wolfe Creek Crater anytime soon, or to any other outback locale anytime soon. However, if you are coming to Australia and you do want to do that, I would suggest that you go with a tour that has guides, that has medical help, and that has radios and things, because the outback is extremely unforgiving. So if you are planning an outback holiday, please, please, please be careful. It looks all great. I mean, it is very beautiful. You've seen the campsites and things and the resorts at Uluru. I would suggest probably going there and staying at a resort if you want an outback experience, but still be very, very careful, because it is still the outback, and we all know that there are dingoes and other things loose around Uluru. So if you're coming to Australia, like, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but just be aware that the outback may not be the place for you. That brings me to number one and our final destination on our list today. And it is the infamous BELANGLO State Forest Road in New South Wales. And if you guys watched my video the other day about Narelle Cox on Missing Down Under, you'll know what BELANGLO State Forest is. BELANGLO State Forest was Ivan Milat, our very worst serial killer that we've ever had in Australia. That was his killing ground. That was where he would stalk and pursue his victims through the bush. It is also where he would take his victims to dispose of their bodies. And Milat would not just dispose of their bodies in the forest, he would put their poor bodies through even more chaos and just even after they were dead, he would interfere with them. So Belanglo State Forest is a very, very creepy place to begin with, and that may have been why Milat chose that as his stomping ground. It is also said that a relative of Ivan Milat's killed a school friend in Belanglo State Forest and buried his body there. And there are a tremendous amount of people who have gone missing in the area, and that was long before Milat had started doing his thing. It's just a very, very creepy place. I think there's been reported a few reports of people taking their own lives in Belanglo State Forest again. It actually reminds me a lot of Akigahara in Japan. And we know what that is, Akigahara. It's the doing away with yourself forest in Japan, and it is extremely haunted. And so is Belanglo State Forest, and you would have to think with Milat's activities and his poor victims that there would be a lot of paranormal activity there. It is also another place that would have been heavily populated by our Indigenous people early in the piece before the colony was settled. So there would be a lot of Aboriginal spirits at play in the area as well. So Belanglo State Forest, it has beautiful camping sites, it has waterways, it has hiking trails, but nobody seems to actually enjoy being in Belanglo State Forest that much. People who have tried to camp there have heard footsteps walking around their tents at night. They have heard disembodied screams that nobody could explain because there was nobody else around. And just the fact that it seems to be a playground for some of our serial killers. I mean, Milat is passed away now. He is in his grave. He is not going to hurt anybody else, but we don't know who else is out there. It is a thickly dense forest. It is lined with radiata pines. It is very easy to get lost in Belanglo State Forest if you do not stick to the trails and the walking tracks. And you will see, if you happen to be driving by Belanglo State Forest on Belanglo State Forest Road, a sign that says, "Welcome to Belanglo State Forest. Please be careful." And I want to look into Belanglo a little bit closer because it kind of gives me that 411 vibe as well, that people could just go missing here for no reason at all. You know, they're there 1 minute and then the next they're not. So I will be doing a further video of Belanglo State Forest as part of the Oz Files in its own right, because I think it deserves more than just a couple of minutes spot. But that's it. That's Australia's 7 most haunted and scary roads. Travel them at your peril. There are a couple I actually would really love to go and explore with my team in at a future date. Lemon Tree Passage, I feel pretty good about that ghost there. He seems like he's pretty helpful and he's quite nice. I would also really love to meet Kelly and the lady in black. But yeah, like I said, you're not going to get me in the outback anytime soon. That's just a no. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Smack the heck out of the like button. If you have not subscribed to me yet, it would mean the world to me if you would, because that helps me continue to make videos and content for you guys just like this one. And believe me when I say, Charlie here, and I have a lot coming up for you in the new year. There are a lot of spooky things that I cannot wait to explore with you guys. So please hit like, hit share, hit subscribe, drop me a nice comment. If you have a scary story from your own town, please drop me a comment down below and let me know what you would like me to research into or look into for you next. And that's going to do it for today. I have had so much fun talking about these scary areas today. Charles and I are going to go and have some lunch now, and I wish you all a very beautiful day, and I will see you back here on Monday for another Missing Down Under. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Oh, and sleep tight.